Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are diving into something that has haunted the Fallout community for decades. This video explores what really happened in the final 24 hours before the Great War. What if someone actually tried to stop the bombs from falling? You're about to hear a confession from inside the conspiracy itself. A testimony from someone who saw Vault-Tec's plans, who fought alongside a Chinese defector to reach the president, who watched the corporations murder the world for profit. This is the story of the whistleblowers who tried to save us, the evidence they uncovered, and why even stopping the nuclear launches would not have changed our fate. The resource wars had already killed civilization. Vault-Tec just chose how it would die. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. Now let me tell you about the day we almost survived. I need to tell you something before the radiation takes what is left of my mind. My name does not matter anymore. What matters is what I saw in those final 24 hours before the world burned. October 22nd to October 23rd, 2077. The day humanity had one last chance to pull back from the edge. The day we failed. You have been taught that the Great War was inevitable, that China launched first, that America retaliated. Clean narratives for a world built on ashes. But I was there in the rooms where the real decisions were made, and I can tell you this with absolute certainty. Someone tried to stop it. Multiple people did, actually, and every single one of them died for nothing. I worked for the Enclave, not the oil rig contingent that everyone talks about now. I was middle management, a glorified paper pusher with enough clearance to see the files, but not enough authority to do anything about them. They called us coordinators. We coordinated resources between the shadow government facilities. We made sure the right people got into the right bunkers when the time came. We were complicit. I was complicit. But on October 22nd, something changed. It started with a phone call at 3:47 in the morning. My secure line, the one that almost never rang. A woman's voice, shaking but controlled. She said her name was Dr. Sarah Chen and that she worked for Vault-Tec's executive planning division. She said she had proof that the bombs were not coming from China. She said Vault-Tec was going to drop them. I told her she was insane. I hung up. I stared at the phone for 11 minutes before it rang again. This time, she did not introduce herself. She just gave me a file number and 277 DEFCON override. She told me to look it up in my system. Then she hung up before I could respond. Here is what you need to understand about October 22nd. The world was already a powder keg. The Sino-American War had been grinding on for over a decade. We had just reclaimed Anchorage back in January, pushed the Chinese completely out of Alaska. American forces were deployed deep into mainland China. The entire nation was running on fumes. Food riots in almost every major city. Petroleum prices at $7,450 per gallon. The new plague still killing people in quarantine zones. Most Americans thought the air raid sirens were just drills. They had been hearing them for months. I went to my terminal. I entered the file number with hands I could not keep steady. What I found made me understand why Dr. Chen's voice had been shaking. The file contained meeting transcripts, a gathering of corporate executives from late 2076, Vault-Tec, Robco Industries, West-Tec, Big MT, Repcon Aerospace, all the major defense contractors. They were discussing the Vault program, how to ensure maximum return on investment for their shareholders. One name appeared frequently in the transcripts. Barbara Howard, senior Vault-Tec executive. Someone from Robco, a Mr. House, asked the critical question. How could they guarantee results when peace talks between the US and China were still ongoing? What if the war ended before the vaults were necessary? Barbara Howard's response was in the transcript, time-stamped and verified, by dropping the bombs ourselves. I read those 5 words 17 times before I could process them. The file contained more, much more. Communications between Vault-Tec and Enclave operatives, shipment manifests for nuclear materials to unauthorized facilities. Personnel transfers for engineers with expertise in intercontinental ballistic missile systems. And a date, October 23rd, 2077. Recommended timeline for implementation of corporate restructuring initiative. Corporate restructuring. That is what they called the end of the world. I printed everything. 342 pages of evidence that the apocalypse was a scheduled business decision. Then I called Dr. Chen back on a line I hoped was secure. She answered on the first ring. You saw it. Where are you? I asked. Vault-Tec Industrial Headquarters, Southern California. I have more. Internal communications. Financial records showing payments to Chinese shell companies. They have been funding both sides, manipulating the war to guarantee the conditions they need. If the war ends, Vault-Tec collapses. They have bet everything on nuclear annihilation. How long do we have? Less than 24 hours, maybe less. The authorization codes went out this morning. I intercepted one transmission before they locked me out of the system. She told me to meet her, a location in Nevada off the Strip. She said there were others, a Chinese intelligence officer who had discovered the same conspiracy from the other side, an enclave whistleblower higher up the chain than me, even someone from the president's security detail who had seen too much. I should have known better. I should have understood that people like us do not get to be heroes. But I was young enough, stupid enough, to believe that proof mattered, that if we could just get the evidence to the right people, someone with actual authority would stop this. I grabbed the printed files. I grabbed my service pistol. I left my apartment in Georgetown at 5:23 a.m. on October 22nd. The streets were already filling with early commuters, people heading to jobs they would never finish, breakfast diners they would never reach. I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to tell them to get underground, to run, to do anything but continue with their normal routines. But what good would that have done? Where would they go? The flight to Nevada was scheduled for 7:15 a.m. I made it to the airport, cleared security with my enclave credentials. I sat in the terminal watching families travel. Businessmen with briefcases, soldiers on leave. All of them had less than 30 hours left. The plane took off on time. I spent the flight reading through the files again, trying to find something I had missed. Some detail that would make this make sense. The woman next to me asked if I was okay. I must have looked terrible. I told her I was fine. I was not fine. Nothing was fine. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I would like to know if I am the only one who feels like we were always meant to fail. We landed in Nevada at 9:48 a.m. Pacific time. Dr. Chen had given me an address, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, far enough from the Strip that Vault-Tec security would not be monitoring it, far enough from everything that screaming would not matter. I took a cab. The driver was listening to the radio. GNR was playing music, upbeat pre-war swing that felt obscene given what I knew. Between songs, the news, reports of Chinese submarine movements off the West Coast, reports of increased DEFCON status, reports that Pentagon sources were calling routine defensive posturing. Routine. As if any of this was routine. The warehouse was exactly where she said it would be. Rusted corrugated metal, broken windows. The kind of place that gets demolished to make room for casinos. I went inside with my hand on my pistol, not sure what I expected to find. What I found was Dr. Sarah Chen with a bullet hole in her forehead. She was slumped against the far wall, still wearing her Vault-Tec executive identification badge. The papers around her were soaked with blood. Her eyes were still open, staring at nothing. She had been dead for maybe 3 hours based on the pooling, which meant someone had gotten to her shortly after our phone call. They wanted me to see this. They wanted me to understand what happens to people who try to stop the inevitable. I heard footsteps behind me. I spun, raising my weapon, and found myself facing a Chinese man in civilian clothes with his hands raised. He was older, maybe 50, with the kind of weathered face that comes from too many years in the field. He spoke English with only a slight accent. "Do not shoot. Please. My name is Colonel Wei Zhang, People's Liberation Army Intelligence Division. Dr. Chen contacted me as well. I arrived 10 minutes ago and found her like this. I kept my gun trained on him. Why should I believe you?" He slowly reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. Chinese military documents stamped with classifications I did not recognize. Because I have been trying to stop this from my side for 6 months. And because if I wanted you dead, you would already be dead. He was right about that. If he was PLA intelligence, he had a dozen ways to kill me before I could pull the trigger. I lowered my weapon slightly. "You know about Vault-Tec." "I know about much more than Vault-Tec." He stepped closer, his movements careful, unthreatening. "Your enclave, our Ministry of State Security, Vault-Tec, Poseidon Energy, all the major defense contractors on both sides. They have been coordinating this for years. The resource wars were profitable, but this," he gestured vaguely at the world outside. "This is the greatest profit opportunity in human history." He opened his folder. Inside were surveillance photos, Vault-Tec executives meeting with Chinese shell company representatives, financial wire transfers, shipping manifests for nuclear materials crossing borders that were supposed to be sealed by war, and something else, a communication intercept dated October 20th, 2 days ago. This is from our listening post at Mama Dolce's in Washington, D.C., he said. We intercepted a transmission from Vault-Tec to an asset inside the Chinese government. Authorization to proceed with Operation Final Product. That is their code name for the nuclear exchange. Your government is in on this? I felt stupid the moment I said it. Of course they were in on it. Everyone was in on it. Elements of my government. His face was hard, just like elements of yours. The people at the top, the ones who see nations as balance sheets. They made a calculation. Controlled apocalypse followed by controlled rebuilding. They get to choose who survives in the vaults, who inherits the wasteland. Ultimate authority over what comes next. I looked at Dr. Chen's body. She tried to stop it. So did others. 3 Chinese intelligence analysts who discovered the conspiracy disappeared last month. An enclave officer named Margaret Vecchio published an article in the Boston Bugle about the shadow government 4 days ago. That article was scheduled to run on October 23rd. Convenient timing. He paused. She also disappeared. Then why are we here? If they have already won, if they have already killed everyone who knows, why are we still alive? Colonel Zhang met my eyes because we still have 18 hours. And because I think there might be one person left who can actually do something about this. He told me about the president, not the shadow government president hiding on his oil rig in the Pacific, the actual official still living in the White House president of the United States. Zhang's intelligence suggested he did not know about the Vault-Tec conspiracy, that the enclave had deliberately kept him in the dark, fed him false intelligence about Chinese aggression to keep him aggressive and paranoid and ready to retaliate when the time came. If we can reach him, Zhang said, if we can show him proof that this is a corporate operation, that the real enemy is not China but the military-industrial complex on both sides, maybe he issues a stand-down order. Maybe he contacts Beijing directly. Maybe we get lucky. I looked at him, this Chinese intelligence officer who should have been my enemy, who had just proposed we try to save the world together with less than a day to do it. You said there were others coming. An enclave whistleblower. Someone from presidential security. They are not coming. His voice was flat. I checked the news while waiting for you. Car accident on the highway outside DC this morning. 2 dead. The descriptions match the people Dr. Chen mentioned. Another convenient accident. Another message about what happens to people who try, but we tried anyway. Because what else could we do? Sit and wait for the bombs? Go underground with the rest of the enclave and pretend we did not know this was murder? We left the warehouse at 11:34 a.m. Pacific time, October 22nd, 2077. 18 hours and 13 minutes before the world ended. We had to get to Washington, D.C. We had to reach the president. We had to make him understand. We had to try. Getting from Nevada to Washington, D.C. in 18 hours should have been impossible. But Colonel Zhang had resources I did not expect. A contact at Nellis Air Force Base. Someone who owed him favors from back when information still flowed between nations instead of bullets. We drove in silence, both of us processing what we were about to attempt. Both of us knowing the odds were worse than bad. The base was chaos when we arrived. Troop movements, equipment being loaded for deployment to China, soldiers who looked too young to understand they were being sent to die. Zhang's contact met us at a side gate, a sergeant with tired eyes who did not ask questions when Zhang showed him certain documents. You have 2 hours, the sergeant said. After that, command locks down all non-essential flights. DEFCON posture is escalating. By tonight we will be at DEFCON 2, 1 step below nuclear war. My throat felt tight. The transport was a cargo plane, stripped interior, no passenger comforts. We took off at 1:47 p.m. Pacific time. I watched Nevada disappear beneath us and wondered if I would ever see it again. Wondered if there would be a Nevada to see after tomorrow morning. Zhang sat across from me, reading through his documents again. After 20 minutes of silence, he spoke. You want to know why I am doing this? Why a Chinese intelligence officer is trying to stop his own government's victory? I had been wondering that. Yes, I have a daughter. She is 8 years old. She lives in Beijing with her mother. When I joined the PLA, I thought I was protecting her future, building a strong China that could stand against American imperialism. He looked at me. Then 6 months ago, I discovered what our Ministry of State Security was actually planning. That they were collaborating with your enclave and Vault-Tec to ensure mutual destruction. That my daughter was not part of the plan. That she would burn with everyone else while the elites hid underground. His voice stayed level, but his hands were shaking. I have been trying to extract her, get her out of Beijing before October 23rd. But they are watching me too closely. Every time I make arrangements, they fall through. So I decided if I cannot save her, I will try to save everyone. Even if it means betraying everything I swore to protect. I understood him then. We were the same. Both of us caught in a system too big to fight, too evil to ignore. Both of us choosing to try anyway because the alternative was living with ourselves after. I do not have children, I said, but I have a sister in Philadelphia. She is a teacher, 3rd grade. She called me last week and told me about a student who asked if the air raid sirens meant the war was coming here. My sister told the kid not to worry, that America would keep them safe. I looked out the window at clouds that seemed too normal, too peaceful. I let her believe that lie. Zhang nodded slowly. Then we understand each other. The flight took 4 hours. We landed at Andrews Air Force Base at 9:52 p.m. Eastern Time. October 22nd was bleeding into its final hours. We had maybe 10 hours left before the authorization codes went active, if Zhang's intelligence was correct. 10 hours to reach a president who probably did not want to hear what we had to say. Andrews was locked down tight. Security everywhere. Military police checking credentials at every checkpoint. Zhang had forged papers that identified him as a defector with critical intelligence. My enclave credentials got me through, though I saw the guards' suspicious looks. They knew something was happening. They could feel the tension ratcheting up. We requisitioned a car, government plates, official enough that no one would stop us. The drive into DC felt surreal. Street lights were on. People were still out, walking dogs, getting late dinner, living their lives. The monuments were lit up like always, proud symbols of a nation that had hours left to exist. I thought about telling them, rolling down the window and screaming the truth. But what would that accomplish? Panic in the streets? Riots that would kill people before the bombs did? Sometimes knowing changes nothing. Reached the White House perimeter at 11:17 p.m. This was where our plan got complicated. The president had retreated from the White House back in March. That was public knowledge now, though the official story was he was at Camp David for security reasons. But I had seen the Enclave files. I knew where he really was, not on the oil rig with the rest of the shadow government. They had kept him separate, kept him on the mainland where he could issue orders, where he could serve his purpose as the public face of retaliation. He was at Raven Rock, the underground bunker complex in Pennsylvania, Site R, the Enclave's secondary command facility. "We will never get inside," Zhang said, staring at the fortified entrance in the distance. "Security around the president during DEFCON escalation will be impenetrable." He was right. We needed someone on the inside, someone with clearance high enough to get us access. I thought about the files I had printed, the names I had seen in those Vault-Tec meeting transcripts, and I remembered one that stood out, not because of what they had said, but because of what they had not said. A Secret Service agent named David Martinez who had been assigned to Presidential Protection Detail. His name appeared in the security logs for the Vault-Tec meeting, but there were no comments from him in the transcript. Just his name, present but silent. I had been trained to notice patterns. Silence in a room full of conspirators usually meant disagreement, or horror, or both. "I know someone," I said. "Maybe." I used a secure phone to call a number I should not have had. Martinez's personal line, one I had pulled from the Enclave database before I left. It rang 4 times. 5. I thought it would go to voicemail. Then a man's voice, cautious. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows you were at the Vault-Tec meeting in 2076. Someone who noticed you did not say anything. Someone who hopes that means you did not agree." Silence on the other end. Then, "This line is not secure. Nothing is secure anymore. We have proof of what they are planning. Dr. Sarah Chen's files, Chinese intelligence intercepts, financial records, everything. We need to get it to the president before 9:13 a.m. tomorrow." Dr. Chen is dead, so he knew about her. "I know, I found her body, but her files survived." "Agent Martinez, if you were disgusted by what you heard in that meeting, now is your chance to do something about it." Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear him breathing, weighing his options, calculating risks. Finally, Raven Rock. Service entrance C, 2 a.m. "Come alone. I am bringing someone. A Chinese defector with intelligence you need to see. Then you are both insane, but fine. 2 a.m. If you are late, the door closes and you can die with everyone else." He hung up. Zhang looked at me. "Can we trust him?" "No, but we do not have a choice." The drive to Pennsylvania took 2 hours. We pushed the car as fast as we dared, racing against a clock that felt like it was accelerating. The highways were emptier than they should have been. I think some people knew on some level. Animals flee before earthquakes. Maybe humans can sense apocalypse too in their bones. We reached Raven Rock at 1:47 a.m. October 23rd now, the day the world was scheduled to end. We had 7 hours and 26 minutes. Service entrance C was a nondescript door set into the mountain face, hidden behind false rock and security measures I could not begin to identify. We sat in the car waiting, watching. At exactly 2 a.m. the door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped out. Agent Martinez. He was younger than I expected, maybe 35. Hispanic features, close-cropped hair, the kind of face that could blend into any crowd. He scanned the area with practiced efficiency before gesturing us forward. "You have 5 minutes to convince me not to arrest you both," he said as we approached. "The Chinese spy goes first." Zhang handed him the folder. Martinez read through it with a small flashlight, his expression unchanging. But I saw his jaw tighten, saw the moment he realized everything he feared was true. "This is authenticated?" he asked. "Yes. Cross-referenced with American intelligence that your colleague has." I gave Martinez my printed files, the Vault-Tec transcripts, the authorization codes, the financial trails, all of it. 342 pages of proof that the end of the world was a business decision. Martinez read in silence for 3 minutes. Then he looked up at us with eyes that had seen too much. "The president does not know. I have suspected for months that the Enclave is feeding him false intelligence, but I had no proof. This," he held up the papers, "this changes everything." "Will he listen?" I asked. "I do not know. He is under enormous pressure. The Joint Chiefs are pushing for preemptive strikes. The Enclave advisors are showing him satellite imagery of Chinese troop movements, submarine deployments, all of it designed to make him think attack is imminent." Martinez looked at his watch. He is scheduled to receive the latest intelligence briefing at 6 a.m. DEFCON update. That is when they will push him to authorize retaliation protocols. Then we need to reach him before 6 a.m. Martinez nodded slowly. "Follow me. Stay close. Do not speak unless spoken to. And if this goes wrong, I will shoot you both myself to protect my cover." "Understood." We understood. Raven Rock was exactly what you would expect from a facility designed to survive nuclear war. Concrete corridors, blast doors, security at every junction. Martinez got us through with his credentials, claiming we were intelligence assets he was bringing in for debriefing. The guards looked suspicious but did not stop us. We descended deeper into the mountain. The air got colder, the lights got harsher, everything felt like a tomb. If you have ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. I will be reading them. Martinez led us to a briefing room and told us to wait. He went to find the president, to set up a meeting that might save the world, or might get us all executed for treason. We sat in that sterile room and did not speak. What was there to say? 20 minutes passed, 30. I started to think Martinez had turned us in, that guards would burst through the door any second. Then the door opened and the President of the United States walked in. He looked exhausted, like a man who had not slept in weeks. He was wearing a suit despite the early hour, maintaining appearances even underground. 2 Secret Service agents flanked him, hands near their weapons. Martinez stood behind them, his face unreadable. The president sat down across from us. "Agent Martinez tells me you have proof of a corporate conspiracy to start nuclear war. You have 2 minutes to explain before I have you detained as enemy combatants." I pushed the files across the table. "Sir, Vault-Tec and elements of the Enclave have been manipulating both sides of the Sino-American War. They plan to initiate nuclear exchange themselves at 9:13 a.m. this morning to ensure their vault program remains profitable and to establish corporate control over post-war reconstruction. This is not a Chinese first strike scenario. This is murder for profit." The president picked up the files, started reading. His face went from skeptical to confused to horrified in the span of 3 pages. "Where did you get this?" "Dr. Sarah Chen, Vault-Tec executive. She was killed yesterday for trying to expose this. Colonel Zhang here has corroborating intelligence from Chinese sources showing coordination between defense contractors on both sides." Zhang spoke for the first time. "Mr. President, my government has been deceived as well. Elements of our Ministry of State Security believe they are partnering with your enclave to ensure mutual survival of elites. But the actual plan is total annihilation with controlled rebuilding under corporate authority. Neither of our governments will survive this. Only Vault-Tec and their partners." The president kept reading. 5 minutes. 10. The room was silent except for the rustle of papers. Finally, he looked up at Martinez. "Is this credible?" "I was present at a Vault-Tec meeting in late 2076, sir. I heard a Vault-Tec executive named Barbara Howard suggest they dropped the bombs themselves to guarantee results. I thought it was theoretical posturing at the time. I reported it up my chain and was told to forget about it. Now I think my chain of command is compromised. The president's hands were shaking. If this is real, if this is actually real, then we need to issue immediate stand-down orders. Contact Beijing directly through back channels. Bypass the enclave completely, and the door burst open. 3 men in enclave uniforms, weapons drawn. Behind them, a woman in a Vault-Tec executive suit. She was smiling. "I am afraid that will not be possible, Mr. President," she said. "You were never supposed to see those files. But since you have, we will need to accelerate the timeline." Martinez went for his weapon. He was fast, trained, professional. He was also outnumbered. 3 shots echoed in the small room. Martinez went down hard, blood spreading across his chest. He tried to speak, could not, and died staring at the ceiling with eyes that still looked surprised. The president stood up. "This is treason. I am ordering you to stand down immediately." The woman laughed. Actually laughed. "Sir, with all due respect, you have not been in charge for months. The enclave has been running operations through proper channels. You are just the signature. And we do not need your signature anymore." She looked at her watch. It was 3:34 a.m. "Authorization codes go active in 5 hours and 39 minutes. Chinese submarines will detect our first launches at 9:13 a.m. Beijing will retaliate at 9:26 a.m. By 9:47 a.m., the surface will be sterilized and we will be safe underground with our selected populations. Evolution does not mourn the weak, Mr. President. It celebrates the strong who survive." She nodded to the guards. "Take him to holding. Kill these 2 and make it look like a Chinese assassination attempt. That will give us good cover for the acceleration." The guards moved toward us. Zhang went for a weapon he did not have. I raised my hands, knowing it would not matter. This was always how it was going to end. We were never going to stop this. But we tried. God help us, we tried. The president spoke before they could shoot us. "Wait." His voice carried authority, even now, even betrayed. "If you are going to murder the world, at least let me understand why. Why go through all of this? The decades of war, the manipulation, the deaths. You already had power. You already had wealth." The Vault-Tec executive smiled. "Had, Mr. President, past tense. The old world was dying. Resource depletion, economic collapse, social unrest. We were managing decline, but in the ashes of nuclear fire, we get to build something new, something better. A world where the worthy survive and rebuild according to our design. No more democracy slowing progress. No more regulations limiting profit. Just pure evolution guided by those intelligent enough to plan for it." "You are insane," Zhang said quietly. "We are visionary. There is a difference." She checked her watch again. "But this conversation is over. We have a schedule to keep." The guard closest to me raised his weapon. I closed my eyes. Thought about my sister in Philadelphia. About how she would never know what happened. About how she would die thinking I could have saved her if I had just tried harder. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in after 3 seconds, bathing everything in red. Alarms started blaring. Someone was shouting about a security breach. The Vault-Tec executive was yelling into a radio, demanding status reports. In the chaos, the president grabbed my arm and pulled me toward a side exit. Zhang followed. We ran through corridors I did not recognize. The president knew this facility, knew the escape routes. Behind us, gunfire, shouting, the sounds of the enclave trying to lock down their prize before he could do anything to stop them. "There is a communication center," the president gasped as we ran. "Direct line to Moscow, Beijing, all major capitals. If I can just reach it, broadcast what we know, maybe someone on the other side will listen." We turned a corner. Found our path blocked by 2 more enclave guards. They raised weapons. Zhang tackled the first one. Fought with the desperate strength of a man who knew his daughter was running out of time. I grabbed for the second guard's rifle. We struggled. The weapon discharged, deafening in the enclosed space. I felt something hot across my ribs, but did not stop fighting. The president picked up a drop pistol and shot the guard I was fighting. Shot him 3 times center mass like he had been trained for this. Like he understood that his own government had become the enemy. We kept running. My side was bleeding, but I did not slow down. Could not slow down. We had maybe 4 hours left, maybe less, if they accelerated the timeline, like the executive had threatened. The communication center was behind 3 locked doors. The president's credentials opened the first 2. The third required a code he did not have. Zhang pulled out a small device, something Chinese intelligence had given him for situations exactly like this. He attached it to the lock. It started cycling through combinations. Behind us, footsteps. The enclave was coming. We had maybe 90 seconds. The lock clicked open at 73 seconds. We burst into the communication center and found it empty. Banks of equipment, screens showing global satellite feeds, direct lines to every nation that still had functioning governments. The president went straight to the main console and started entering commands. This is President William Chambers transmitting on all emergency channels. What I am about to tell you will sound impossible, but I have proof. The nuclear war you are preparing for is not a natural escalation of conflict. It is a coordinated corporate operation designed to ensure Vault-Tec and enclave control of post-war reconstruction. They plan to initiate launch at 9:13 a.m. Eastern Time. I am uploading classified documents now showing the transmission cut off. Every screen went black. Then they flickered back on showing a different face. The Vault-Tec executive, broadcasting from somewhere else in the facility. Mr. President, your clearance has been revoked. Your transmission has been blocked. And in approximately 3 hours and 47 minutes, none of this will matter. You cannot stop what is already in motion. The president slammed his fist on the console. There has to be another way, another route to... There is not. Zhang's voice was hollow. He was standing by a window that showed the outside world through cameras. The sun was starting to rise. October 23rd, 2077. Even if we could stop Vault-Tec, even if we could convince Beijing and Washington to stand down, the world is already dead. The resource wars destroyed the economy. The petroleum is gone. The uranium reserves are depleted. Fusion technology came too late and in too limited quantities. Within 5 years, civilization would collapse anyway. Starvation, disease, resource wars that make the last decade look peaceful. He turned to face us. Vault-Tec did not create this problem. They just chose to profit from it. And maybe, in their sick way, they are right. Maybe controlled annihilation and corporate managed rebuilding is better than slow death and chaos. You cannot believe that, I said. Your daughter, my daughter is dead either way. His composure finally broke. Fast with nuclear fire or slow with starvation. At least with the bombs, she will not suffer long. At least she will not have to watch the world eat itself. The president looked at both of us. So we give up? We just let them murder billions. We already lost, sir. I pressed my hand to my bleeding side. The moment petroleum reserves hit critical in 2050, the moment fusion research fell behind schedule, the moment corporations realized they could profit from apocalypse. We lost decades before anyone tried to fight. The door burst open. Enclave guards flooded in. They did not shoot. They just surrounded us with weapons raised, waiting. The Vault-Tec executive walked in behind them. She looked at the president with something almost like pity. You tried. I respect that. But the future belongs to those who plan for it, not those who mourn what could have been. She gestured to the guards. Take the president to his quarters. Let him watch the new world being born. Kill the other two. As they dragged us away, I saw the clock on the wall. 6:47 a.m. 2 hours and 26 minutes until the first launches. 2 hours and 26 minutes until everything ended. They separated us. Put me in a holding cell with concrete walls and a single camera. I sat there and watched the minutes tick by on a digital display they had helpfully installed. Maybe they wanted me to appreciate the countdown. Maybe they just wanted me to suffer. At 8:30 a.m. the door opened. A guard threw Zhang into the cell with me. His face was bloodied, but he was alive. We looked at each other and did not speak. What was there to say? At 9 a.m. they turned on a monitor in the cell, showed us satellite feeds, Chinese submarines positioning off the west coast, American missile silos going to final alert status, the machinery of annihilation spinning up like it had always been designed to do. At 9:13 a.m., we watched the first missiles launch from both sides simultaneously. Perfect coordination, perfect timing, proof that Zhang had been right all along. Both governments working together to ensure mutual destruction under corporate guidance. The guard watching our cell smiled. Welcome to the future, gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed the past. At 9:26 a.m., the retaliatory strikes began. The monitor showed nuclear blooms spreading across maps of China, Russia, the United States, Europe, anywhere with strategic value, anywhere with people. At 9:42 a.m., the feed cut out. Electromagnetic pulses taking out satellites. The screen went to static. At 9:47 a.m., I felt the bunker shake, felt the mountain itself shudder as megatons of explosive force rewrote the surface world. Raven Rock was deep enough, fortified enough. We would survive down here. We would get to watch the aftermath. The guard was laughing, actually laughing. Your sister in Philadelphia? Gone. Your daughter in Beijing? Gone. Everyone you ever knew, everyone you ever loved, everyone who ever had a chance at tomorrow, all gone. And you get to live with that knowledge for however long we decide to keep feeding you. He was right. This was worse than dying. This was living. I looked at Zheng. He looked at me. We both understood that we had been allowed to survive for one reason: to bear witness, to remember what the world was before Vault-Tec decided to improve it. The radiation will take me eventually. It is already in my system from the surface exposure during our escape attempt. But before it does, I needed to tell you this story. I needed you to understand that someone tried to stop it. Multiple people tried. We fought against the corporations, against the shadow government, against the machinery of apocalypse itself. We lost, but we tried, and maybe that matters. Maybe in whatever world grows from these ashes, someone will find this recording and know that the Great War was not inevitable. It was not Chinese aggression or American imperialism. It was murder for profit. It was corporations choosing extinction over reduced quarterly earnings. Remember that. Remember us. Remember that preventing the bombs would not have saved you. The world was already dying. Vault-Tec just chose when and how it would end. War never changes, but neither does greed.